Hello and welcome everyone. Today we are going to be talking about remote work. What are the issues and challenges, and then talk about lessons learned and potential best practices. And so with us today to speak on these issues, we have Brett Nowak, who is the CEO of Liquid and Grit. And worth mentioning that Liquid and Grit went remote actually before COVID. And so have a lot of lessons I'm sure that you have learned. Second, we have Steve Palley, who is product owner and head of data, I believe, at
Recently, no longer head of data.
okay, product owner at
Yeah.
Pixelberry. And similarly, you guys started remote work pretty early back in 2012, but not fully remote, but as I understand it, 1/3 remote work starting from then, and then I guess you are having Tuesdays and Thursdays as remote. Is that how you guys are operating?
Yeah, pretty much. We had a hybrid model up until COVID hit earlier this year. I myself have been fully remote since 2015.
Wow. And finally, we have James LaLonde, who is the co-founder and CRO at Yodo One. Welcome, James. And you guys
Hey,
had a big announcement, right? Which is that you guys are going fully remote as of December 1st. So
we're ripping the Band-Aid off. Yeah.
that's
Pre-vaccine.
all right. So maybe we could dive right in. And first, starting with maybe this first question around what are the biggest changes caused by the pandemic and remote work to work behavior and work environments? And I know Brett and Steve, you guys have started a little bit earlier, but James, for you, was it like a major shift when coronavirus hit in March? Or actually for you, you're in Beijing, so it was early for you guys, right?
Yeah, it was early for us, and it coincided with Chinese New Year. So myself and my co-founder Henry Fong took the family overseas on vacation, which a lot of people do at that time. And we just weren't able to come back. So the two people who run the company were not Henry isn't back yet. So we had to figure out a new way to run the company, which was really, really attached to the office in Beijing. So, yeah, it's been a pretty hairy experience. We jumped out of the plane while I was flying.
Right. And then in terms of like when that first happened, what kind of big changes did you see in terms of was there anything like was it just a mad scramble to try and figure out processes, or what are some of the big changes that you
We
saw?
realized that we had a problem with communication because in an office you can just grab someone, and a lot of people were really effective to one communication and, hey, let's do this. What do you think? And not getting full buy off. And when you're not able to do that, then you have to be able to communicate better. And so we realized we had just a huge communication and therefore decision making process defect. We didn't do it well, and it wasn't clear. A lot of ambiguity, so we had to bring a lot of clarity into the process. That was painful. We had to do a lot. So Henry and I did one-on-ones for 2 or 3 months with all of our key leaders to try to figure out where their minds were and how things work to just get a baseline on where our organization is at and how our people actually think and work, which we found out we didn't really know, even though we sat next to them in the office for years. It's funny that way.
And then Steve, could you talk about what was the original motivation for going partially remote at Pixelberry, and then maybe talk about the transition for you guys as well?
Yeah. So the original motivation was Pixelberry was kind of semi spun out of EA. EA had acquired a previous studio called Center Score that had been started by two out of the three co-founders, and they went through the EA experience, spun out into Pixelberry in 2012, 2013, I think, and acquired a third co-founder. One of our three co-founders was in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and the other two were in the Bay Area, Mountain View. So that was the original rationale. I think part of that was also it's a little bit easier to pick up engineering talent if you're hiring remotely. And I think we realized that even 7 years ago. And the tools at that point were obviously really rudimentary, but we managed to get as far as we did, right? by the time I arrived at 2015, I was probably employee 30 something, and I was a remote employee 10 or 12, something like that.
Right. And then when you guys went fully remote, was that a big change, or since you guys were already transitioning that way?
Well, it was a big change, to be honest with you. I think that everybody had gotten really used to the hybrid model, and it was very much a feature, not a bug. It was part of the Pixelberry package, which is you get a lot of flex time. You have 2 days out of the week where you can actually just get stuff done and not have to talk to people so much, and also take care of all of your chores and laundry and things that you need to do. And so everybody, I think, had adjusted to that and really liked it. Everybody who was at the mothership. And so to cut off Monday, Wednesday, Friday as well, the assumption was, oh, hey, we know how to do this. It won't be a problem. We just go from 40% of the time to 100% of the time. And everything we usually do will scale. And I think that was wrong, basically. And it's been a painful process to try to reassemble a way of working that makes sense.
Right. And Brett, I assume it was fairly seamless for you guys since you did this before COVID. So maybe you can also talk about that original motivation behind switching to remote even ahead of COVID.
Yeah, we've been remote since day one. And the main motivation for that is because I wanted to build the most agile company that could respond to any unexpected or expected changes that happened. And I thought COVID was a good example of that for us. And there are other things than just remote that we've built that way. And I think I mentioned this, but this is based off of a book that I read that actually Bill Gelpy gave me, who founded Rocket Games, that did quite well. And that was a motivation. The other motivation was it was kind of always glamorous idea of mine that I would be working in like a pimped out Winnebago with my 3 boys in Montana, and I'd work from like 7 a.m. to 1 while they ran around like fishing, and then
I still have that dream, so don't kill it for me.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, like in fact, the first like year of work, I wouldn't get anything but a laptop. Like I wouldn't get a second monitor or anything like that because I was just so like focused on that vision happening. And then I realized that this is a couple years off. I might be able to get like a second monitor and some setup, but I still to this day am like all my stuff fits into my one briefcase. Like I can pick it up and go to another room or whatever. So I still hold on to that. And I think those type of dreams are important to get you motivated every day.
So one of the things that it seems has been a shift or a challenge from my perspective has just been in terms of management, right? And so one of the things, and something I wrote about earlier, was that when you're all in the same office, you can kind of manage by hours, by assuming that the people working next to you, they're working on work and they're getting work done. But in a remote situation, you actually don't know what your employees are actually doing. And so now, from a management perspective, in terms of observation, what do you observe? Do you observe hours, or do you observe outputs and outcomes? And so I wanted to get your thoughts in terms of, one, do you agree with this kind of shift in how people manage? And two, how should you be managing employees, direct reports in this kind of remote environment that we have now? Maybe starting with you, Brett, since you're starting with this from day one.
Yeah, I mean, disclaimer, I have a fairly unique company structure and I designed it for multiple different reasons. But as you might know from another podcast, we don't have any meetings internally. I meet with clients, but we have 0 meetings. We had one and the team decided that they didn't want that meeting either. We were so prepared for it, it kind of became not really useful or worthwhile. And what that affords us to do is basically be able to very clearly see the work product that someone's doing. I mean, if they're working 20, 30, 40 hours a week, and we have contractors who work different hour ranges, I mean, that's a lot of time to just be working. So what that allows for us is to just basically see it. I mean, if they spend 40 hours this week doing something, like I can just open up their documents or whatever and see like this, you'll feel it. I mean, you can see the work. And then, yeah, so that if you have other stuff, it's very hard, I think. I mean, we don't have that problem necessarily, but I mean, the other thing is we have everything obviously in the cloud, and it makes it easy for me to just jump into documents and things like that. But I generally manage based on work product, and because we don't have anything else but work, it's very easy for me to tell if they're getting a lot done or not.
Right. So you kind of started with this kind of outputs driven. You've got the work product itself is easy to evaluate. And so based upon that, for you, managing employees is pretty natural in this remote environment. What about you?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, the one thing I wanted to add that I know you were talking about is that if it's something that you aren't going to be able to do that as much, then you want to assign people that you've had on your team for a certain amount of time. You have that kind of trust, right? Like there's a system where if they're just new, you're going to monitor that more and put them on less risk projects. Whereas if it's a riskier project and you can't observe it, then you sign that to someone who's been working for you for 3, 5, 6 months, a year, or whatever, and then you don't have to worry about it.
right. So someone you trust. Steve?
Yeah. So as product owner, I don't have any direct reports as such, but I am responsible for the output of a number of different internal and external dev teams.
Right.
And it's like either the sausage gets made or it doesn't.
Right.
And I'm in a position where we have milestones we need to hit. Certain things need to happen on or around those milestones, or I need to explain why. So I'm also happily in the position of having really good teams, so that I am able to kind of set priorities and watch the tapestry kind of weave itself, or at least that's been the case to this point. I think we have some really good internal and external teams that really know what they're doing. And they basically make me look good and make the project look good. And where's the magic there? I think it's just experienced people that, again, can be trusted and know what they're doing. It has a lot less to do with anything I'm doing in particular, other than trying to deliver the vision consistently and keep people focused on what matters from a high level.
Right. James, how are you guys thinking about that at Yuta One?
Well, we are employing 250 people and have multiple business types and units, and people are doing very different things. So, keying off what Brett said, we just decided we're going to have one fixed meeting, one management meeting a week. It's going to be an hour long. It's not going to go over. And we took a big bet on this thing called a concept called sunshine. So since all of our meetings, if you want to have meetings, we're not going to let you say no meetings, but all of them will be recorded. People that are in the different time zone that couldn't attend can watch the meetings. Every meeting has notes and action items, and every meeting has what we call, which is another tenet of ours, WDSLL. What does success look like? So why are we having this meeting instead of working? So what's it supposed to be for? There's a video, audio transcript of it, and there's meeting notes. So we said, if you're going to do a meeting, do it right or don't do it. And then following on this sunshine concept, we have these groups in the internal system we use. It's called Ding Talk. It's because we're based in China. It's not Slack or anything, and in the groups, we also don't want people using email. So if you send an email that's relevant, you need to put that in the group, and you need to put your meeting notes in the group, and everything everyone's doing, if it's a product team, if it's a marketing thing, in that group needs to be completely transparent to everybody. And so we've also eliminated all rules in the company, including HR. So we only have guidelines. So there are no rules, but you have to be massively transparent. And we went through that process over the last 10 months, and it gives us the confidence that we can go fully remote in 2 weeks, which we plan to.
That's really interesting, James. I kind of like that concept. And so basically, if I'm just trying to understand the motivation behind the group chat, it's basically, to your point, trying to make everything as transparent as possible. And if I think through the implications of that would be like some of the things that happen at the office. It's like, I could go up to Steve and be like, "Hey, Steve, fuck that Brett guy over there. He's slacking all the time and blah, 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 blah." But anything now, because communication is all group based, anything I say to Steve is going to go to Brett, is going to go to you. So
Absolutely.
you're training people to, like, if you're going to say it, you say it to everybody.
You say it to everybody's face. And it was really tough for people. And we lost some people because they didn't deal with it. They liked talking behind people's backs or gossiping, and they ended up leaving because we said, "Where's the video?"
Right.
And it seems Big Brother, but actually, if you're honest with each other and you trust each other, it's not a big deal. And I've caught myself doing not so good things as a co-founder, owner of the company. So I'm going, it's taught me a lot too. It's not just, we've all learned to be better and more honest and sincere. And all of a sudden one day it went from scary to very necessary and fulfilling.
Right.
It was weird.
And so one of the things so Brett and I actually had a previous panel discussion where a lot of the focus was on meetings. Now, one of the things I have heard being here in Silicon Valley is that whereas many Silicon Valley companies on the surface say there's like this, as I was mentioning to you guys earlier, this virtue signaling, like, yeah, we're a fantastic remote work company and it's been so great and we've managed this so well. And then later on, it's like, hey, actually, it really sucks. I've got meetings all day long and things like that. And I'm especially hearing from some companies like, these companies that are supposed to be the best at product management, like Facebook, they're Zooming from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and then they start work. So I don't know, from your experience, are you guys seeing a similar thing? Or maybe, James, because of some of the new processes that you've implemented, that's kind of eliminated the number of Zoom meetings. And Brett, you've eliminated it completely, right? So
yeah. There's two things can I comment on what James did? Which I really liked. I would like to hear more actually on the sunrise. I don't know if you
Sunshine.
want to explain. Sunshine, thank you. Sunrise, sunshine, thank you. That seems pretty interesting. But two things that we do differently is, I'm just a counter. I know you like the discussion, Joseph, so I'll kick it off. I'm not into the transparency thing. Not that they're not transparent. It's just not, like, our philosophy is more on a need to know basis. It's like, if you're in another department or whatever, we don't even invite some people to our Slack channel because it's like they're, my chief of staff or something. Like, why do they need to be chatting with people in the company? And I'm pretty on top of that, only because, not on top of that, but that's like, I'm pretty focused on that just because that, as you scale, as we get to 250 or whatever, we're not at 250, but that can be pretty costly where everyone's getting like 1 million chats from everybody, right? It grows exponentially. And then the second thing that we do is we have, and we talked about this in the last podcast, so it's a little repetitive, but we have all of our communication it's relevant to the work product, right? So it's communication around something that's making the company money. It makes, and I personally don't like communication that the communication is primary and the thing that's making the company money is secondary. Email and Slack are good examples of that. Although we do use those partially, but we generally have something that's going through the company to make us money, and the communication is around that item, moving it forward. And I think that eliminates a lot of the chit chat and social and all that stuff that comes with meetings and communication being primary.
So Brett, I totally agree with most of what you're saying. So the transparency forces people to say, if you're going to do a meeting, you better do it well and you better not waste people's time. And so that's part of it. The other part of it is that we don't have everybody just listening in on what's going on all over the company. It's usually very focused product teams, but the coupling of sunshine with WDSL, what does success look like? So it keeps them focused on what's making money for the company. And if we see chit chat or going on, or we're starting to say that shouldn't be, why are we doing this? We're actually asking why a lot more, instead of just doing something because the guy next to us or our friend in the office who we communicate really well with kind of wants to do it, and we're like a team of two that just came up with this cool idea, and we'll tell someone later about it. I don't know. That's working for us so far, though. It's scaling too, which is interesting.
Steve, what about at Pixelberry?
So the question involves just day in, day out wall of video meetings.
Yeah.
And whether or not that's good, it's terrible. It's like enormously destructive and terrible. And
that's what's happening. Is that what you're saying?
We started out that way. Because I think the assumption was, well, we need to stay in closer touch because we're not in physical proximity, and we need to stay aligned on all these different complex processes that are moving around. But I think, honestly, that just torched people. There's something about video chat that just corrodes the soul. Like, I don't know how else to put it. I don't know. I've read a couple articles about how latency increases cognitive load, and you're trying to have a conversation with people, but you're stepping on each other, and it's just it's horrible. It's genuinely horrible. And I'm not saying that it is never necessary. Sometimes it is, clearly, if you have something really important to talk about. But I think what we've seen is that the costs are too high to maintain just a high cadence of doing it for the sake of doing it, just so we see each other.
Steve, that really reminded me of something that I wanted to ask Brett about. So I have a son, and I'm actually, and my co-founder Henry is too, we're doing these sessions with our employees we're work from anywhere now. So where are you going to work from? Are you going to move back to your hometown? In China, we have a situation where people come to the big city to earn a good salary, but they'd rather live at home. We're saying, have you thought about it? We're saying, and I'm saying, I do meetings for 2 hours, then I take my kid to school, then I do this. And we're sharing best practices, and we're trying to get the whole people that have made the transition to a relatively sane life earlier. We're trying to at least have them come up and record videos, 3 minutes of how they did it. And so it sounds really touchy-feely, but it kind of feels like it's necessary to help people make the transition. To think about this is, oh shit, the office is being taken away. What do I do? It's more of, how am I going to live my life going forward? And yeah, in our company, you can say no to those meetings, and you can watch the video later or see the notes. You don't have to join. And if you have a video meeting and nobody joins because you have terrible meetings, then that says something to you as well. So it's a self kind of evolving process that way. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what we're playing with now.
The thing about no meetings for us also allows, I think was what you're getting at, a flexibility of life, which a lot of our people at our company love. I mean, I have people who work all night and sleep all day. I have people who work at 11 o'clock after they put their kids down with a glass of wine. I don't know, and I don't care. They work. Some people working on Saturday and Sunday. I don't know, and I don't know where they are. I have one really high up person who he was going to go move to Spain, and he's in Oregon now. And I mean, COVID delayed that, but he plans on doing that. So, I mean, that's another real big benefit of no meetings is you can have people work wherever you want. And your pool, I mean, I think most importantly for me is your pool of candidates that can work at your company is the entire world.
Yeah.
So my potential talent pool is every single person in the world. Yeah. Right. And going remote allows you to increase the pool, but going remote with no meetings or a very low dependency on concurrent time zones and concurrent communication allows you to have the entire world as your potential candidate pool. So like, and that's incredibly important to me. And it allows me to just think like, I know there's someone who's great for this position. There's no doubt in my mind because the whole world is a potential candidate. So yeah, that's another huge benefit.
2 huge points.
Yeah, I think the tricky part with the meetings in the context of remote work is that I feel like the wall-to-wall Zoom meetings, the objective of those meetings are sync ups, right? And I just feel that there's a better way of doing sync ups, but there are certain types of work that require close collaboration where you've got product managers, designers, developers for complex work products. You need this group collaboration, and there are dependencies that need to be well communicated. And so for those types of work tasks, I still think you do need meetings, but I will say that in my belief is that the majority of meetings are more of these sync up meetings, which could be done through a shared paper doc or something like that.
Yeah.
And
So, Brett, you should write a book, but this is what's driving our meeting structure. So we want access to that entire talent pool. So we have a regular management meeting that at least every single week, fully 20 to 30% of the managers do not appear because it's time zone bad for them. So they'll use Loom or whatever, or send a quick 3-minute video, and we listen to it together and we give them feedback. But the idea that I thought we would have all these situations where people are trying to do these impossible 3-continent meeting setups, and just by saying you don't have to attend any meeting because they're recorded makes either the meetings really important or great, or it's okay to watch it later or not watch it at all. And it kind of naturally, without setting a rule, made it almost meaningless in a sense, except for what Joseph said, the teams that really need that collaboration. We just let them do that if they want.
And maybe the one other category that you would need meetings is in environments where you need training, right? Where you need a senior and a junior. And
Onboarding. Yeah.
Onboarding and just like teaching people new skills and things like that. So
that's proving to be a real challenge in this environment. The other thing I'll say about meetings and replacing meetings with something else. Yeah, I think that the majority of meetings are syncs. And I think that majority of syncs people don't want to do and kind of resent, to be honest with you. There has to be a better way, and we're trying to locate that. I, for one, enjoy writing my thoughts down. The problem is that I work with a lot of people who are not necessarily fluent or engaged writers. They prefer to talk or they prefer to listen. And I think figuring that out can be quite difficult. Just understanding everybody's unique communication style. And some people seem to do better with video meetings than other people. I think it's bad for like humanity universally, but like people have a very wide range of tolerances for this type of thing. Some people really can't stand it and hate it. And others can abide it, much more. So it's like trying to fit all of those preferences and skills into some framework that makes sense. If not universally, then like best fit,
Right.
I mean, I would, it's a difficult thing to say. I mean, I'm a sole proprietor owner of my company, so I get to say these things, but I mean, I would disagree. I mean, I would say what is best for the company, and then people should fit into that system. And if people can't communicate over written or whatever, then they should be considered replaced. I mean, because like it's having the like, well, I feel like I really like communicating. I mean, I think we were talking about it earlier. Like I really like going on meetings too. It's fun, but it's not the best thing for the company. So you should decide on something that the heads of the company I think should decide, and then you should move forward with it.
Yeah, it's a fair point.
I think that, and then to Joseph's point, like I think that there are benefits to it, but again, it's what is best, right? There are benefits to meetings. You do get to information faster, but when I'm making a decision, it's not like, oh, there are some benefits to this, so let's do it. It's what is best, again, and being able to hire the entire company, having no switching costs, having like everything documented, and all these different things are more beneficial to the company, and that's why we decided to do it.
Yeah. So Brett, what I'll say is, like, we are not fully remote by choice. And we didn't start out that way. We had a hybrid system that I think works really well for the balance of people and the things that we needed to accomplish. And we got thrown into this other system.
But I would counter with that, which is that, like, I mean, so what? I mean, like, that's the forces of the world put upon you. Like, you can't just have a company and a culture that says, well, this was forced upon us, we really like that old way, so we're going to hold on to it as much as we can. And I've learned through life, and I take this to business, is the faster that you can start operating on this is the new reality and what is best for the new reality, the better off you're going to be. And I referenced this book, but that's OODA loops if you want to research it, which is observe, orient, decide, and act. And I mean, that's kind of the enforced reality of what's going on, and it's changed. So,
well, it kind of sounds like there's two things at play here. One is situational context, meaning that depending on the kind of work that you're working on, depending on the kind of environment you have, you might want to have different processes. So, for example, if you are working on a complex work product, if you have to train a lot of people, you may want to have more meetings. And if you don't, and outputs are easily observable, no meetings. Second is, like, to this point that you raised, Brett, having the people fit your system. That reminds me of the big, coaching. Like, I'm a football fan, but there's always this big debate with football coaches. Like, do you get your players to fit the system?
Yeah.
Or do you create your football philosophy to fit the players? You know what I mean?
Right.
Joseph, that reminds me. Sorry. I forgot what I was going to say, but now I remembered it.
Joseph,
and it was
this is a cutoff hoodie for a reason. Is to remind me of Bill Belichick's system every day. So, I mean, but I don't know if that was a lob, Joseph. But
successful cases in both schools, right? So I think it can be successful either way. But James, please.
Yeah, but being able to, as Steve said, be able to write clearly what happened in a meeting, what your objectives are. If you can't do that, you won't make it with the company. And if you can't pitch in 3 minutes an idea at our company and not waste people's time, you will not make it either. And to help that, we have a thing called Pitch Club, and we've been doing it for before COVID, 2 years now, to help people get a place where they can practice pitching. And it's become a community thing, and people come from all over the world to join the meeting. But we provide a forum where you can practice, but the reality is you've got to be up to speed in working, even if you're from Czechoslovakia or Namibia, and we've got to be able to onboard you in 2 weeks. You've got to be able to learn to communicate verbally and pitching. So we would rather see a pitch for an idea in a 3-minute video in our company than have a meeting about it. It's become our new thing.
All right. And maybe we could talk about that next in terms of some of the best practices. And sounds like you guys have already started sharing some things, like James, this kind of, this Chinese version of Slack where everything's kind of transparent. Steve, to your point about being able to have written things, like one of the things that we do at our company is we have daily notes. And so, like, at the end of the day, we just write down all the things that we accomplished, any problems or challenges, blockers. And then this is available to everybody, and they can see that, they know what we do. And then we also use a project management tool where we plan out our week, so we know exactly what we're trying to accomplish for the week. And there's a dashboard that shows progress of everyone in the company. But in terms of any other best practices, are there any things that come to mind for you guys, or anything that you guys have discovered?
I mean, one of the things that, my philosophy is to treat people like adults, I mean, and if they're not an adult and can't manage themselves and can't get their work done or can't, then they're not the right fit. And we've invested a lot in our hiring and onboarding so that it's extremely scalable. I think I've talked about this in other podcasts, but it's all remote. There's no interviews. It's very inexpensive, and that allows us to find the right people who fit into the culture. But I treat people like adults. Like, we don't have top-down project management. We don't have oversight. We don't have management. Like, you're an adult, and if you can't manage yourself, then you don't fit into our culture. I also kind of live by the creed of treat people like you want to be treated. And I always wanted to create a company that I wanted to work at. And this is really the company that if I was, working at, and I'll say we actually had our first person this week decide that she wants to leave the company. Our first regrettable departure, but she did have she had a lot of other stuff going on and had nothing to do with our company, according to her. But so we've had very good retention with this system, and people love it. And I'm not just saying that because I'm, the owner or whatever. But I think treating people and adults really works well, and getting them into the system extremely early and seeing if they're a good fit is another way of doing it. We onboard them very quickly, and there's sort of like a grace period. And we have again, unique system, but we hire a lot of contractors. And so we have them start working and see if they fit into the culture pretty early on. Like, we don't handhold for the first 6 weeks and then let go and say, do you fit in? They're basically on their own from day one. Like, everything's videos and documents. And some people, what we've learned is there, and I always kind of say there's pearls out there, and we just got to go find them. And some people just come in and they fit. Yep. They're trained. They know what they're doing. They can work autonomously. They don't need meetings. They don't need social. They just work in our system. I don't know why. It doesn't have to do with experience. It doesn't have to do with their background. We don't interview them. It doesn't have to do with their whatever.
And you can't predict it. It just happens, doesn't it, Brett?
Yeah.
I mean, you go, whoa, this person clicked and this person didn't click. And it's really obvious quick if you throw them right in. Yeah.
So Brett, for you, sounds like a lot of, in terms of, to the extent that you can, automation of processes, put a big focus in terms of the onboarding and hiring, recruiting, evaluation piece, so that once you get people in, they're likely fairly competent, fairly trustable. And then also, because it sounds like the work product that you have is easily to observe, that, it's kind of like a machine for you guys.
See, I personally don't think it's specific to what we do. We do a lot of different things, and I don't see any difference in, we're doing a lot of consulting work, which, my wife works at a huge consulting firm. They meet all the time. We don't meet for that. We do report work. We don't meet for that. We do technology work. We don't meet for that. I don't really think so. I mean, I think I don't think it's specific. But I think that scaling your onboarding is key to unlocking all of this, because if you don't scale your onboarding, then you're forever thinking that people in your company you don't want to get rid of. And so you have, people in your company don't fit and you're keeping them, or you're people who aren't working hard, and then you're doing all these things to make these people happy. And the reality is those people have a lot of control over your company. And so as a company, you want to,
make your people disposable.
These are you want to make them super talented, but also extremely replaceable. It's
a Netflix model, right? More or less.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, and we don't. It just protects you as a company, and it also allows you to hire top talent and not be afraid to let go of B+ players. These people are great, but they're not A-minus. They don't fit in our culture perfectly. So we should do it because our process is so cheap to get new people in that we don't hesitate to that. It's a quick decision.
Let me tell you how that works in a company that wasn't work from anywhere and had switched to it. So we've probably had a third of our key leaders on performance improvement programs because they weren't looking like they were going to make the change easily. And just to what Brett said, you can't have, as a leader or owner of a company, an employee that you need so much that you'll bend the goals of the company to that one person. So you must be able to replace people that don't fit the way it feels, and the only way to do it is to be able to take the global talent force, use a scalable recruiting process, and bring people in, and even maybe set them aside next to each other and see how things happen and who does best. And yeah, it sounds a bit Darwinian, but that's the world we live in, and we still have a happy culture for the most part. So it can work. I know it sounds, tough, but that's life.
And James, for you guys, you have mentioned some of these practices around transparency, recording meetings, making them available. I think you mentioned you use Loom, which also has transcriptions and stuff like that. And it's
Yeah.
making it more efficient. But are there any other best practices that you can think of that you have found to be effective at Yoda One?
Well, it goes without saying, but you have to go back to basics. So you have to walk the walk and talk the talk. So the leaders of the company have to do exactly the same, and the company's gotten flatter, and so a lot of the best practices in the early stages were coming from myself and my co-founder Henry, and we were doing it ourselves. And I think a lot of people find comfort in the office, and they feel like there's a place to hide and to do their own thing, and it's just weird. And once sunshine became the order of the day, it was like quickly those people who are really good at just surviving and hiding, it was very clear that what they were doing wasn't affecting the top line or helping the bottom line. And they kind of stuck out like sore thumbs because the sun was so bright. So then we had discussions with them, and many of them got put on performance programs. Some of them were asked to leave. And it forced us to say, we can't hold back what we need to be as a company just to satisfy and keep this person around. Even though we've worked with them for 8 years, we like them as a person, we love them, it's not a fit. They're not going to be happy. We're not going to be happy. Let's just have the discussion and figure it out.
So James, what is it that's part of Sunshine? Like, what does it do specifically to help uncover performance deficiency? So like, for example, this person that's been working for 8 years, and all of a sudden Sunshine comes and it's like, you're not doing your work. Like
Give you a real good example.
Okay.
Someone's in charge of something, and in a 3-minute pitch, live or video, they can't explain what they're doing, where they are, why you're doing it to their peers. And it's so glaringly sad and scary and all of that. And then they have to live with that. We say, well, you want to talk about it and come back again next week? And if they have to come back 3 times to get the message across, even with help and coaching, they're not crossing the chasm to our new reality, and we, have to have that discussion.
I'm going to add to this because, go ahead, Joseph, go ahead.
Well, I was just saying that maybe one of the benefits, as I was talking about earlier, like part of the shift because of remote work has been like this shift in terms of observation from hours to outcomes or output. And so it sounds like this is exactly what's happening at your company, where these guys that previously, they're in the office or hanging around, but now it's like, okay, what are you actually doing? Let's actually measure some of this stuff.
When you're in the office, no one has you come pitch to what you're doing and it's different. And some people gravitate towards it, and some people really don't like it. They'd rather hide.
To some degree, like at my company, we're kind of taking that to extreme where we've got like dashboards on everything.
We've also updated dashboards. It's important. We haven't gone crazy, but we do have where we didn't have before.
All right, Steve, tell us the secrets of Pixelberry. What's going on?
Hey, Brett wanted to say something. Though,
Yeah, I mean, I hesitate to say things like this, but I came from, I mean, I don't know if you know, I played professional hockey before I got into games. And that culture was super cutthroat, and that's where I started in the professional world. I mean, I had I think 15 roommates my first year, and guys would, hey, my name's Steve. Oh, hey, nice to meet you. 2 days later, Steve's gone. Like, that's the culture that I came from, and it was a revolving door, and they didn't care. You got traded. I mean, they'd be like, hey, I got traded to Ohio. I was living in New Jersey, and it was like the next day I had to drive to Ohio. And when I got to the working world, I just was like, well, like, people are never getting let go of companies, and like it just like never happened, or rarely happened, or fired. Like, it was just so, I do adopt a lot of the Bill Belichick stuff, but I don't believe a lot in like this cultivating people thing, just because I don't really believe people can change that easily. I mean, it takes years and years and years for people to change like the smallest thing about them. And from professional psychiatrists, people who have 8-10 years of academic experience. Like, I'm just a guy with half an MBA, like, what am I going to do? So I have a little bit different philosophy. Is it's like, you're an A player coming in, and I can teach you skills, but you were an A player before. And if you're not, then you're not. And I'll tell you who loves that the most is other A players, because they don't like working with B players,
No,
so
A players will be demotivated.
Yeah, they love it. Nobody in my company complains about us getting rid of a B player. Like, there's not like, oh, because those people have been around for years, and they haven't never even heard, had a negative feedback or anything like that. So it works really well.
So Brett, the interesting twist on that is by having a pitch club, where an arena where people can pitch and get feedback, not from the management team, but from peers and people who joined from all over the world will be critiquing your pitch about your dog's love life or whatever you decide to pitch back. So the idea is, we don't say we're going to coddle you or teach you everything or change you. We're just saying you are bad at pitching you can't concisely explain things. That's a problem. Here's a forum where you can learn. Come back next week, pitch there, and if you can't get it soon, and you're going to be, and it's well known in the company now, if you can't do that, you're going to be, they've seen people shown the door. So it's the idea of, we're not going to hold you and train you for a year, and it's not lifetime employment, but we're saying this is what we care about. If you can't learn to do this quickly, and we'll show you where you can improve it, then yeah. I mean, the hockey world, from some of the books I've read, like Blink or whatever that was, I mean, it sounds pretty, yeah, definitely.
I mean, at the end of the day, is like, you're trying to protect your employees by having a company that makes a lot of money and keeps them employed as long as they're working hard, right? I mean, that's how I bring happiness to all my employees. And my philosophy is, people want to work, and they want to work, and they have autonomy, have pride over their work, and get to see the outcome and have control over things. And they want to be paid, and they want to feel security. So, that's how I create happiness with my employees. It's not by getting to talk about our dogs and our cats and what else. It's not what I get paid every single. No, I'm not talking about you, James. I said this in other podcasts. No. Sorry. Yeah, I remember you, the pitch deck of the dogs. No, it's not about. That was another reference to what you said, by the way, James. That was no issue. What people generally talk about at meetings. The election, COVID. I don't know what it is that we talk about, but that's what I'm trying to provide. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I understand your.
You've heard my spiel.
I'm not totally there with you, but I understand that perspective. Yeah. Steve, let's
get harder. Joseph, get harder.
I was hoping to hide from the sunshine and just kind of go along to get along, but yeah, Joseph, the spotlight's on me now. What you guys are saying, frankly, makes a ton of sense to me. I actually come from the world of academia, which is obviously not professional sports, but it is very individual focused, and you either perform or you don't.
Publish or perish.
Pretty much, yeah. I was actually too impatient for academia, and I like games too much, so decided to not do that after spending 6 years of opportunity cost. Oh well, but I learned a lot. It was good. Anyway, I'm sympathetic to it. It makes sense. It makes sense given the new technologies and the new paradigm. It is diametrically opposed to the way Pixelberry operates, period, full stop. And the way we operate, frankly, has produced spectacular results over the course of, 2 companies, 2 exits, including most recently to Nexon, which is a very, very large Korean game publisher. And I think we're up to 3 or 4 top 10 at one point games on the App Store. So we never lay anybody off. We retain a core, and they just get better and better and better and better together. And do we only ever hire A players? No, but we only ever hire people that we would never want to lay off. That's a hard thing to do. We haven't always been successful at it, but it's worked for a long time. I think some of what we do has broken down in 2020 under COVID because of just the stress that people are under and the way that we create our products, the things that we actually do to make money. But we do feel that the culture and the institutions that we have produced over a long period of time have served us very well. And I think the proof's in the pudding for us anyway. And I think it just goes to show you can get things done and make money and be successful in a lot of different ways. Now, again, it could be that we're undergoing some kind of secular paradigm shift enabled by technology, and we're going to be outcompeted by systems like Brett's system or Yoda One. I don't know. That's not clear to me yet. I would say that if I were starting a company from scratch, me personally, and I'm a 3-time entrepreneur, by the way, various levels of success, I would probably start fully remote from day one as well, because I would want to make use of those efficiencies. But I'm also a believer in path dependence. I'm a believer in DNA. And so, I'm actually really interested in a company like Yoda One that went from in the office to making this change, it seemingly successfully, because
so far so good.
Yeah, that seems like something that Pixelberry would never attempt. We'd literally never attempt that. It wouldn't even occur to us.
Well, I'm an entrepreneur too, and the last company I founded was like Brett's. We were totally remote, and we sold that. But I took a hiatus from Yoda One to do that company because I was compelled to do it, and and I learned a lot there, which I brought back to Yoda One, so that helped. This is we're all learning here, right? But this is where I think we're on the right trajectory.
Yeah. And I think, Steve, to your point, one of the things that I think people just have to realize is to understand their own situational context, right? And for example, working in games is about the most complicated product that you can make. It's a blend of all these things, science, art. So that complexity requires more meetings, things like that. And I would say maybe a counterpoint to what you're saying, Brett, about just hiring A players. When I worked at Fun Plus, we had something that I now call the leads-based model, where we try to get the best leads in the industry, the best lead game designer, the best lead product manager, the best lead client developer, back-end developer, but the team underneath were kind of junior, less experienced. And so what that really required was for that lead to be able to bring up the entire level of the entire team. And that leads-based model, to the point you were talking about earlier, Steve, maybe in this new environment now with remote work where training becomes harder, where being able to sit down, talk to people very closely, being able to teach in a remote work environment, maybe that does now break down. Maybe having a leads-based model will become a lot more difficult unless you can figure out how to teach, train, and improve your more junior team much more quickly in a remote environment, which is kind of to be determined.
It's really tough. We're still trying to crack that code, to be honest with you. And, we're in a position where we're actually hiring a lot because we have a lot of new things that we're working on. And having to go out and do that under these circumstances, we're not able to do the things that we usually do to evaluate people carefully to see whether or not they match.
You're going to make mistakes. We hired 30% of our workforce during COVID. We're expanding, so we just hire fast, fire fast, and we
Yeah.
have really, we focus a lot on the onboarding, and we have gates, and we check in, and we make managers responsible. You let this person in, what is it going to be? And we have it very clear for each role where you should be in 3 months. We have a midpoint check-in, and sometimes we just say at 1 month or 2 month, hey, you're not making it. Sorry, our bad. We'll pay you out for the next month, but just please leave early and have a good life, and it will be better because you're not going to fit in here.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Like, I'm sympathetic to that. It doesn't match the processes that, have served us to this point. And I think we're trying to contend with that. I think, yeah.
The way that I'm designing our company is probably going to be closer to Pixelberry. So to your point, James, in terms of, you guys are hiring fast, firing fast. We have a little bit of a different philosophy, which is our first 10 employees, hire slow, fire fast. But then after that, we want to hire slow and fire slow. So we actually do want to be a little bit more like Pixelberry, where we want to start investing in people, trying to train them, and it'll be a gamble, but we'll see where that takes us. But Brett, it's
Oh man, dude.
Well,
Dude, we're a
one
small
size
company.
doesn't fit all,
So
though.
expensive, man.
Yeah.
That's so expensive, dude. I mean,
Yeah.
for a small company to train someone and then they leave with all that training, like I would not do that, but we don't do that.
So for us, the other way that we're trying to compete is on culture, and if we believe we can make an organization
Culture.
that's training these
Yeah.
people as much as possible, and that we can continue to train and improve them, that we believe that we'll be able to retain them.
Yeah.
Define and
Well,
focus on your
we've-
culture is huge. We've rethought and we've spent actual time at myself and Henry, the co-founder level, thinking about our culture, what it should be, as obviously Brett has with his company. And that's why I think your panel is cool, because you got someone who started this way, someone who's going this way, and then Steve, who's thinking maybe we couldn't go this full way, and you got a mixture here. But wow, if your culture will tell you, if you define it properly, what the right thing to do is, if that makes sense at all.
I want to comment on Steve's thought. So, I mean, the philosophy behind what we do is based again off of military strategy, but the military strategy is that you have an amazing plan, right, that you are going to execute, but war is inevitably going to be unpredictable and chaotic. So not only do you have a plan for what you expect to happen, but you build a culture and a system that can not only respond but take advantage of chaos and
John Boyd,
things you
man.
don't expect. Yes, James. Clearly, you're a disciple as well. And so it sounds like Pixelberry has an amazing system. Like, obviously, like you said, the proof's in the pudding for the current state of affairs, which if you look at war, it happens over and over again. And I'm saying that you guys are, it sounds like you guys are thinking about this and you're a successful company, and not me, but constantly where you have a system that has a really good system, but then has another system that can respond to changes to the system more quickly, then that system can basically overcome the better system in the current state.
Yep.
And that's why it's so important, I think, for my culture, for my company. It works for me, but I generally believe in it, is that we're building a system that's ideal for this current state, but is also ideal for an unexpected change that's going to happen to us in the future.
Yeah.
And that's why we're built this way. Again, we don't say oh, okay, but this is a benefit. It's yeah, it is, but we don't know what's going to happen. And when that thing happens, we not only want to respond, but we want to take advantage.
Yeah. I took a think week during COVID, and I looked at the book Antifragile. And it's not about being resilient. It's about not being fragile, which means it's hard to explain, but basically we don't survive stuff. Actually, chaos makes us stronger. And I thought about, and we've retooled our culture to that point. It's a good book if you haven't looked at it, but that's what it's about. actually change makes you stronger and you thrive on it. And how do you have a culture and a company that actually works that way? And there's a large swath of the population that are not just going to sign up and love that, but there are some who really will. Back to Brett's pearls analogy, there are those people, and if you state what your culture is and it emanates from you, those people will naturally gravitate towards you, and you'll make fewer hiring mistakes. I think that's what we're seeing, but we're not. We're in the middle of it.
So, Steve, it sounds like, well, I think from Brett and James's perspective, they're kind of fully committed to remote work.
Yeah.
Once we're back to normal, what happens with you guys? Do you guys go back to the hybrid model, or do you think
I think, yeah, for us, we are going to probably return to the hybrid model. It may be that we hire more fully remote employees, but I think for Pixelberry to thrive longer term, we are going to need that mothership. We are going to need that base because of the way that we started out and the people that we have, right, and the kind of work that we do. We're specialists in narrative gaming in particular, right, and that requires a lot of creative brainstorming and stuff like that. And we have new products, but like that's kind of where we've banked for 15 plus years, right, across the core team has anyway. Yeah, I think the anti-fragility argument is a really good one. I've done a lot of research into complexity theory and the dangers of over specialization and over efficiency, right? And how simpler systems can actually respond and adapt much more readily than specialized ones to new circumstances. I would say that at Pixelberry, we've been able to do some of that, but I think we've also seen the way that we've done things in the past hasn't scaled as well as we thought it would, and we've had to rethink a bunch of things. I think it's been so intense that we've had to just continue forward with a lot of suboptimal systems in place, and it's taking us longer to go back and make necessary process changes because we're in it right now, and we have to deliver right now. And so the people that have been there a really long time, we're able to continue to do that, but it's definitely come at a cost in sanity and morale, is what I'll say. But at the same time, we've gotten news about a vaccine. We never thought this would last forever, and we think that we should be able to go back sometime next year. The plan is, we're giving up our lease at the end of this year. We haven't even been there since March or something. And we'll go back and get a different office back half of next year, is my guess.
Right. Yeah, for what it's worth, we're banking on the same thing, being in an office, because we do work on complex products and have to train and things like that. So maybe it is a bit
because you believe it's necessary to do that.
Yeah. We had those arguments too. We just plowed through them.
Yeah. Well, I think
the 5 questions. Why do you need the office? And why do you need to do that? And why? You say 5 why times, they don't have a reason to have an office.
That's the Toyota system, right?
Yeah, I was going to mention the Toyota way. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like some of the principles. I mean, you're removing waste from the system, constant improvement. Yeah, we've been.
I think for us, it's just because games are so complex. You need so much collaboration, and there's so many dependencies, and we have to.
So what do you think is more? Yeah, I don't know.
If you think you're complex, you will be complex. If you think it's not complex, it will evolve to not complex. I promise you.
But
if you buy into that we're complex, then you're going to be complex.
It's funny.
So maybe I could ask a last question to your point, James, on the importance of culture.
Okay.
In a remote working world, how do you ship your culture? How do you convey, communicate, let everyone know about your culture, given everyone's going to be remote? And maybe, James, since you brought it up, we could start with you.
Yeah, we just boiled it down. As I told you, we spent some time on thinking about our culture to 5 mantras. And I won't give you all of them, but, it's not about you. So don't take things personally. So that was the first mantra, and operate in the sunshine. And so what we find by having only 5 mantras like this, that people use the word, they'll just, if they see people violating the mantra and taking it personally, you'll see them in group chats going, "Hey, don't take it personally." We have WDSL in our mantras. They'll say, "What's the WDSL?" So it's the 5 tenets that we built this thing on, and we didn't overcomplicate it. Just said, just do these 5 things well. They're mostly related to communication and things, and treating people like, as Brett said, you'd like to be treated yourself. And the rest of it, there's not a lot of rules, and it stuck on, and it was a total experiment. We didn't know, there was no anything like this posted. There weren't those posters like you see in Silicon Valley offices where are this kind of company and we do this and we believe in that bullshit. I mean, it was just this, these 5 things matter, and have fun doing your work. And if you see people not doing it, help them get the message.
What about you, Brett?
I mean, I think culture comes from the top, and I also think that we just live it from day one. I mean, the second you come to the company, I mean, again, in our hiring process, like, we don't interview, we don't know if you're a man or a woman or a cat or a dog. Like, we don't, we see what you do, and you get hired based on your ability to do that work. And then we get you on board, and you're experience the culture from day one. You watch a bunch of videos on what we're like, you read a bunch of documents, and you get after it. I mean, there's nothing different from day one that there is from day 150. It's get in here and get after it, and you get treated like an adult and figure it out. And and if you fit, great, and if you don't, that's fine too. We think you probably
I have a question for Bill Belichick. How do you celebrate your small successes and small wins in your company? Because we're trying to think about how to do that. I mean, previously, I'll give you an example. Each department had a little budget for company, employee relations. And what we found out is they just pulled it every month and then did whatever they want and gave, basically, it was an entitlement and it was worthless. And so we're not, there are things like that we've blown up, but the idea is we do want a company where these small successes are, kind of shared, and you have that feeling of the team, Brett, the team sports. So I'm just curious to ask you how you see that happening in your organization, because that's really important for the back end of culture, as far as, we accomplished stuff and we did it together and our culture works. It's a winner culture.
Yeah. Well, we're on to Cincinnati, James.
I'm living in Beijing. I don't follow the sports.
That's what Belichick says to all the reporters. But
okay.
Yeah, it's a football joke. But I often joke that we do communicate, but 90% of them are gifts. So like if something happens, we'll just send out gifts, and that's kind of it. But I would say, again, it goes back to what my belief is that I feel like work is intrinsically rewarding. And I don't feel like it's my job to supply people with birthday parties and happy hours and social events. Like, they can go home and do that. Like, they don't want to hang out with me. I'm a salty dad with 3 kids who goes bass fishing every day. Like, who wants to, talk to me about stuff? Go home and hang out with your friends, And to me, I create a wonderful environment to people create things that they're proud of. And, we just, someone just posted something in Slack that we got finished a big project, and that was it. But it's intrinsically rewarding to do great work and be proud of it, and have autonomy and ownership and make good money and go home and do whatever else you want to do. And so that's generally that's how we celebrate stuff.
What do you celebrate?
Every day is a celebration. Every day is a celebration. I love going to work. So does, I think, most people, I mean, not to mention, a lot of these people are coming from, I don't compete with Silicon Valley. They're not coming from Google where they're playing video games all day. These are people that are coming from, grocery stores and real estate offices where they get yelled at every day. I mean, they freaking think I'm the best boss they've ever experienced in their entire life. I'm not competing with Sergey Brin. So that helps too. But I would say our celebration is in the work.
Right. All right, Steve, take us home. How do you guys ship culture at Pixelberry, and has it changed during the pandemic?
Yeah, I'm going to say something unsatisfying that I've been saying a lot, which is we're still trying to figure that out, to
Okay.
be honest with you. And it's something we recognize as being really important. We are doing more activities to online to try to figure out a way to reinforce the culture that has been a big advantage for us all along. And we had an online scavenger hunt a number of months back that was really fun, that people really enjoyed. We had actually like a chocolate tasting thing with like a docent.
Yeah.
So there's kind of like online versions of the events that we might do together in the office. But the point is, to establish an environment where people genuinely like each other and enjoy collaborating and want to stick around for the long haul because they're friends with people. Again, it's really, I think, diametrically different than some other companies, the way they do things, and that's fine. I think it comes down to your particular situation, as James was saying earlier. But we're still trying to crack that code.
Well, maybe a few ideas that we're trying out. So I don't know if you guys have read the book, 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership, but similar to James, we kind of condensed that down to like 5 specific things, but we're going to have all of our employees sign these commitments that are part of our culture.
No.
We have a values doc that we make our employees read just to make sure they're aligned, right? Because for some companies, some people, the way in which you operate the company, the way you inner work, those kind of values are going to be different. So we want to clarify that from the beginning.
Yeah.
We also, when we join, we communicate our culture through an email drip campaign. So every day you're sent like a new lesson for the first 2 weeks that kind of talks about different aspects of our culture just to reinforce it. And then finally, we have an employee level system. So everyone in our employee directory, it also shows your level. You're level 2, you're level 5, and with each level, you get something. You get a mug, you get a t-shirt. And then we also have created a system where your laptop, once you get to a certain level, then you basically get to own your laptop.
Oh my God.
So you've gamified HR, is what you're saying?
Laptop. They did that at Zynga, by the way. They did a leveling system.
Yeah.
That's really funny.
There is a proposal now I'm looking at, and we're talking about gamifying the onboarding process. So
Yeah,
this is interesting.
Because we're still,
like I said, we found that
we're going to see if
there's some people that just get it. Again, if you're Bill Belichick, he's restricted by free agencies and things like that, but like we aren't. Like we're Bill Belichick's with the ability to have anybody in the world work for us. Theoretically. So I don't see why we operate with all these like constraints on ourselves. It's like golden cages we put ourselves in, and it's like, oh, we can't trade people. We can't get rid of people, like we're almost more restricted than a football team who actually has these guidelines, I don't know. I got to stop talking about my company. I'm very, obviously have a very unique situation, but it's kind of, I don't understand it, I guess.
I think you're a really effective evangelist for your system.
Yeah.
Like it makes a ton of sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can pitch, man.
I would be worried about it, Joseph. I think you're, if one of these people, if you're investing so much in all these people, it puts a lot of risk on your company, honestly. It's just, and that's not good for your other employees, right? Like, because one of your employees, if they decide to leave, you put all that, value into them, and we put value into it, but you got to be, have to have safeguards as well. I'm not saying don't invest in them.
It's funny, we had a meeting with another games studio CEO, and he's like, "Hey, let's make an agreement that you won't poach from our company, we won't poach from ours." And I was like, you know what? That's fine. I won't go after anyone from your company.
What?
But I
Isn't
told him,
that like antitrust? What is that? That's like a. That's like.
I told him,
Edit that out, dude. I don't think
Cartelization.
you're allowed to do that. Right?
I
It's like
told-
an Apple Google thing.
so Brett, I told him, feel free to come after any of our guys because I think, from my perspective, if I can't create a company, if I can't create a system and a culture where people love to work at the company, if I can't do that, if I can't incentivize them to be there, then I should lose them. That's my.
What I'll say is our culture and our system over the course of 2 decades in various permutations has had close to 100% success rate in retaining senior talent. And that works until it doesn't, obviously. But looking backwards, at least, it's worked really, really well. And we regard it as a superpower for Pixelberry. And
Awesome.
To Brett's point, though, we operate in a world where we compete with Tencent and ByteDance, and we could go and pay their people, and ByteDance calls our people every single day, and they give them 2x, 3x money, and it's like they know what the world would be like if they went over there. They would be it's a different. So I have to be an evangelist for our culture like Brett is, because be clear, take the money, go there, understand what your life will be like. Not that we don't pay well, we do, but understand what this situation is and figure out which one you like and make informed choices, my friend. Is what I try to say.
Yeah, we just stole somebody from probably top 5 companies in the world in terms of brand. And she was like, I'm so excited and she was working at both for a while. And she's like, I'm just so excited to be done with that other company and just be able to work in your culture and get so much done. I mean, this is like top 5 most known companies in the world. I mean, you can imagine what their culture is like because they're a big company, but yeah, I mean, it's, but it sounds like you guys have an awesome culture too. So, I mean, kudos to that. I mean, it's not one size fits all. I certainly agree with that. I think it really does come from the top, and being honest with whoever the founders are, whoever is establishing that culture is super important, because there's just no way of faking it. It's like someone's going to, like James said, like someone's give a pitch. The best pitch is the pitch that fits you, right? It's not the pitch that I do. It's not the pitch. So I think in terms of company, like you can't fake it. Don't go do my company because I'm wired in a certain way and it works really well for me, but it's me,
Totally.
It's somebody who's flowery and conversational and I'm collaborative, but like that, it's not going to work. So I completely agree. There's fundamentals. And I think the fundamentals, what James and I talk about, are really, I think Certain to Win is the book that I would read. I mean, those are fundamentals that I think are very important. And I'm very confident that those are the right things because they've been proven out in war, which is like, life and death. And that's where I get a lot of my inspiration because it's so clear. It's like what worked. But then when it comes to what the actual result is, that should be customized to the people, the culture, to the founders really, and what they believe in, so
all right, guys, I think we're way over time. Sorry, Steve.
It's okay. They started Bath without me. I gotta.
How long are Joe Rogan's podcasts, Joseph?
4 hours.
I mean, I don't listen to him like somebody
Good
does.
topic.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time, guys.
This was a pleasure.
We got Steve. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks.
Take care.
All right. Yeah,
Bye.
Thank you, Joseph. Bye.